All right, Matt, here we are back at the vBlog helm again. I think today you said you wanted to talk a little bit about utilities and platform-led transformation.
Yep, absolutely. And just kind of the journey we've seen particular utilities come through, in the last 20 years.
Okay. We talked about this a little bit earlier, and you were saying that the focus and the emphasis has always been on the grid, and now maybe that's changing a bit. Can you talk to us about what that means?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's necessarily changing as it relates to its importance, but I mean, you think about, co-ops, for instance, we were heavily focused on really about getting energy to these rural areas. So the emphasis is relates to where we made our investments and also how we leverage technology was very focused on, bringing energy to our members. And then what you're seeing today, it's not that that's gone away. It's still critically important, in particular in the digital world. How do we look at maybe connecting assets and using data to really learn, whether it be SCADA data or Pi data, and put that into a predictive model and really start to see better patterns of how we can manage assets and uptimes and resilience of the grid and so on. But our ecosystem grew, and so as a result of that, our demand on the business operations side grew. And so what you're seeing is a migration from core financial systems with a lot of custom applications around them. And I will tell you, I think the IT groups and co-ops and utilities are some of the unsung heroes when you look at what they've been able to do over the years as it relates to bringing technology to both their colleagues as well as members has been pretty awesome. And so what you're seeing now is much more maturity in the business operations side, and even changes in how our members, what their needs are, and really kind of focusing in on, more of the traditional customer experience that you may see in other markets. So it's not just about the energy we deliver and the prices by which we can make that happen and how we manage our costs and all that, but also how we operate as an organization.
Okay. So you talk about the communication with the members. Are you talking about member portals and things like that?
Absolutely. It could be even, really around, a lot of times we hear commitments, and commitments can be everything from work orders or work we may be doing on their behalf to, that we've got a board member's birthday that's coming up, and, kind of in board meetings, and really kind of managing that entire experience of our members. And then also kind of what would be more modern threaded on the, from a digital perspective, is what we call the feedback loop. So how do we really kind of take more of an outside-in approach and really putting our members at the center of everything we do, and then improving and our strategy being driven around that as the pillar, versus kind of inside out, which is a lot of what we do as it relates to how we operate the business, and these are the features and functions I need to do that, which may or may not have an impact directly back to the member.
Okay. So I've heard you mention kind of the work management side of this, the member communication side of this. Obviously, we started with the grid side of this. Are there other areas where these cooperatives are investing maybe more heavily today than they might have in years past?
Absolutely. I mean, you're seeing kind of 3 or 4, depending on what application, but kind of major areas of investment. One is around, obviously, the employee empowerment, and so you're seeing big investments around talent management and really empower employees, both from a self-development perspective, but also from managing benefits and really creating a better experience for our employees, and making that process a bit more streamlined, making the employees a bit more empowered as it relates to managing HR and health-related elements.
I imagine that helps to attract people too, right? Younger people with different skill sets.
Absolutely, and you absolutely are seeing that today, where you're seeing people outside the industry coming into the utility space and bringing new learnings and also a different way of wanting to work. Some other big areas are around, things like ERP systems and really our financial supply chain and replacement of those major systems. And I believe the big change you're seeing there is really this connectivity element. So probably in most utilities you see today, you're always going to have a multi-system environment. It's the nature of the business. Even if you just look at the control side and the infrastructure side, we've got these different systems that are in place. So the importance of how we look at, let's say, ERP today, API is a big component of that, or the integration capability, as well as mobility, so that, again, empowering that employee. So whether it's a lineman working on a repair or I'm simply a employee and I might be at a training in another state, I can still get access very easily on the device of my choice. Another big area is obviously around maintenance, and so sometimes you'll see this as part of the ERP system. In other cases, depending on really how that organization manages their assets and what their kind of their policies and practices are, you'll see EAM in some cases standalone, and in other cases it's part of ERP. And then purchasing can be on both sides of that fence depending on what their strategy is. And then the last kind of area is really around work management, which can be pretty broad and deep depending on how an organization defines that, but it's really about managing everything from capital project life cycles, from a buy or build scenario to converting those into assets and maintaining those assets and then decommissioning those assets. And there's a lot of coordination, both with internal employees and teams, as well as third-party vendors and so on. And so what you're seeing today is much better, what I call conduit, a very open platform that allows you to really have multiple stakeholders that may be within the organization or external that have very unique needs from a user interface perspective. And so how do we create a connection so that we are getting one source of truth as it relates to actions data and where something might be in a process flow or approval, as well as the environments that we deal with, so maybe I'm in an offline environment or something like that if I'm out in the field. So so when you think about work management, it's not just about managing the capital project lifecycle or the maintain side. It's really also about the whole coordinated effort and how do we bring these individuals together into a predictable process, provide the right data for them to take the right action, and then ultimately, delivering what's needed as it relates to that point in time event.
Okay. Now I know we've in several of these V blogs, we've talked about data and analytics and the ability to report and predict and so on. But if I back up for a second into your conversation, you mentioned the importance of APIs and kind of controlling the systems in and what you use. I think the whole world over the last year, because of COVID, has seen companies reach out and just add cloud system after cloud system to the point that the IT guys are pulling out their hair because they can't track things. Does this at all lead back to what you mentioned earlier, the platform-led, maybe better controls over how you deploy technology?
Yeah, I'll give you an example where we've seen it come up is, in RFPs, as example, it's not just about a financial system replacement or work management replacement. There's a lot of language in there these days around integration capability, around the UI experience, again, whether it be mobile or what my options are there. But integration is a huge one. And whether you're looking at master data management or you're looking at kind of an independent enterprise data management service bus or whatever the philosophy is there, it's absolutely a major factor these days in what we would consider, a wholesale system replace, to now looking at it's not just in the cloud world. I think has changes dramatically as it relates to you may be moving from an on-prem system or you may be maintaining a hybrid system in the future where you've got some cloud apps and you've got some on-prem. And so obviously the architecture and how we connect and the security and all those key elements are key. So it's just a different mindset as it relates to what's important about, business applications and some of the technology we're looking at modernizing as part of a transformation initiative.
Okay. So is that something that Sonata is known for, helping get through those transformation initiatives?
I think it's our biggest strength. We came, our core is we're an engineering company. And so we understand really behind the scenes what it really takes as it relates to, the true plumbing, in particular when you look in the cloud world. And from a transformation perspective, not from the fancy side of, all things digital, but really from the plumbing side to say, so often we see either we're going into recover projects that are failing or in some of the large organizations, they may have a great strategy as kind of the outcomes they want to get to, but they're having a hard time in the execution. And, really how you layer things in this digital world is critically important and how you prioritize things. If you don't get the engineering design side right, then it's very difficult to create success, and it kind of spirals on top of itself as you add more layers of applications and connections and so on. And particular with a lot of what's going on in the security world, it's such a whole different skill set than most IT organizations need or have rather, and particular in co-ops, they're very small IT organizations, and again, why I call them heroes, because they do some amazing things for the limited budgets they have. But so it's just a different mindset in the cloud world today, and you really have to have sound cloud engineering expertise, regardless if you're building from the ground up, on custom open source, or you're looking at, a Microsoft off-the-shelf business application, and then how do we integrate that into an ecosystem, either within the organization where we have different systems like the SCADA and PI, as I mentioned, or vendor management or whatever it may be, or external parties that may be part of our, in the case of members or even vendors, where we've got a pretty strong collaborative partnership with.
Okay. Well, listen, I know Sonata, implements ERP systems and work management and these things. But if I'm a CIO or director of IT of one of these cooperatives, I'm listening to this vlog and I think, you know what, Matt's got it figured out. He's got some information I need. I'd like to talk to somebody like him about our infrastructure or our strategy. What do? Do they just give you a call, or how would you approach that?
Absolutely. I mean, we're a very open organization as it relates to, different. The way we typically approach it is that, from a first connect perspective, is really understanding what they're trying to accomplish. And then from that, we have competency leaders in different areas like data and IoT and platform engineering and so on. My skill set is back, my domain expertise is around utilities and service industry. So, so initially, once we understand kind of what the priorities are, then we can bring in the right experts to be part of that conversation.
Okay. Well, fantastic, man. Another great vlog. Anything you want to close with?
Yeah, I think closing thoughts would be, today you really need to think about any technology decision as a platform, and what does it really mean? A platform versus just, a solution. It has a lot of different components today. It has a data, it has a connection, it can have intelligence, and it can have the API layer and so on. And so I think when you're making decisions, whether that be, on very specific solutions or more enterprise-wide solutions, that it's critically important to make sure that the system you're looking at, has modern platform architecture, because it will give you a lot more freedom down the road as it relates to, whether you want to do app dev on your own or from an integration perspective. Because what we're seeing in the market, both on the member and customer side as well as the vendor side, is that the biggest thing we're all trying to solve is how do we make our relationships either with our partners and customers less frictionless. And so ease of doing business together is critical, and platforms are really at the center of that.
All right, very informative, great as usual. I think we'll end it there, and we'll catch you on the next vlog. Thanks, Matt.
Sounds great. Thanks, Bill.